Hello, everyone. I finished a junk journal, and while I was making this junk journal, I made some videos showing the progress of how it started, what I did, what I added, what I took away, because I had to take away some pages at one point. And I have lost those videos. I cannot find them anywhere. So I've had a lot of questions about how I did some things in this junk journal that was supposed to be explained with the videos that I had already done. Since I can't find them, I am going to recap some of the points of some of this. And a lot of people are asking about the tip outs, how I did some of those. The most asked about question is this tip out, where it tips out three different ways. So, um, let's just start at the beginning. This is a true junk journal. It is made from old greeting cards, menus, travel brochures, brochures from this museum, all kinds of stuff. This is a menu that I've covered all up, and that's why it's so long. That's why it has so many tip outs, because that's how the menu came. And I just sewed it in as a page and then covered everything up. I also added envelopes. This one has a window in it. So you can see it has a window. Um, So I've added envelopes in a few different ways as well. And one of the things I really like about junk journals is different size pages and being able to find hidden little bits that you are not expecting. So there's a lot of flip outs here. And so I want to show you how I went about doing this. All right. So I have a couple of junk journals started, and I can show you how I started with the junk mail, just complete junk, because I haven't done a lot in these signatures yet. I do work in signatures. I put my papers together as I want them. I work in them. Find a page that's actually been done. I work in them as signatures. And that way I am not fighting the other pages. I'm not fighting the cover. It's a little bit easier for me to deal with just doing this kind of thing. And I'll show you how I make a signature. So that's what I did with this other junk journal. I had 5 signatures. I put together all kinds of different things like this, the cover of a magazine, a um, announcement, menus, travel brochures so that there's lots of flip outs, just, junk mail, anything that I can find. The thing I don't like about all the junk, I mean, I do like saving it from the landfill, but I don't like the fact that I feel like I need to cover all this up. I don't want to see all this stuff. I don't want to see all the advertising and all that stuff. So I feel the need to cover it completely. So I probably will not be using junk like this again after this one. I am going more towards using up papers that I have. Um, and I started doing this one in a live stream yesterday. So if you want to see some of the process of this is just some pieces of paper like these that I had laying around. Oh, they don't have a bunch of writing on them. I do have some scrapbook paper um, with a little bit of pattern, but they're plain. I'm not going to feel the need to cover all of this up. Some of them are very, very wide, and that is so that I can do tip outs. So what I do with junk mail or whatever pieces of paper you've decided to make your book from. I fold my pieces of paper in half. Some of them that are really long, I will fold. I've got ants, I'm sorry. I will fold a couple of ways so that I have tip outs. It's too long just to fold in half. So I'm going to fold that there. And this is going to be where I sew it in, and then I'm going to have a little tip out. All right. I like different size pages, so I've made sure that my papers are all different sizes. I like the little tiny pages as well. They're different widths, they're different heights, they're just different. Some of them are cardstock, some of them are drawing paper, so they're not quite as thick. And this one's really, you know what, I might make just a little pocket on this side. So I'm going to fold it in for now. And then I'll show you how I deal with something like that. So I've got my pieces of paper, and I will start putting them together for a signature. Some small ones in the middle. That one. Tip out this way. I can leave it open. Put that one there. And I'm going to put this little pocket thing right there in the center. Now I'm going to use a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, and this just keeps my pages together while I am working on them. Sometimes I leave the stitches in when I sew it into the book at the end. Sometimes I take the threads out. They just anchor the pages together, and that is all it is for. So no need to worry too much about it. And when I'm just anchoring my pages together, I don't measure. I just poke some holes in where I think they need to be to keep my pages together. And I've showed that I do this in a video as well. It is in my playlist called Book Construction. If you are not familiar with a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, I show how to do it step by step. So I am just going to speed up and just do it so that you can see it done. So I can go on to other things. All right. So this is just the signature that I will use for a journal. It's more of a blank book. It's not necessarily a junk journal because I didn't really use junk. It is just a blank book made in the junk journal style. All right. So it's got some things. I could leave that as a tip out. It's got a tip out here. This is the one that I worked in yesterday. It has a nice tip out here. And I just glue things on the pages and that kind of thing. But I did want to show how I do some of the tip outs, adding some pockets and some of that kind of thing. So one of the easiest things to do, junk journals are fun for adding, little bits to. Finding things in pockets, making a tip out that, hides something in there. And one of the easiest ways to do a tip out or even add an envelope is to find an envelope already made up. This one did come from a piece of junk mail, but it's pretty plain, and I liked the shape of it. So I would probably find a place to add this. Here's a tip out, and it would be fun to actually add a tip out to a tip out. Okay, um, so this page tips out. This is the page, and it tips out. What I would do with something plain like this is I would glue the flap to the end of the page. And this way, it's another tip out, and there's a pocket here. And you could add a picture, and I might actually do that um, just to show you how I add things like that. But that's kind of interesting to have a tip out on a tip out. So I'm probably going to do that. So let me just do that real fast. And all I am going to do, I do like when I do glue a flap of an envelope down, I do like to glue down the part that has the glue on it already. Sometimes if you don't get the glue off, it can stick. Um, so I just make extra sure that that glue's not going to stick my pages together. And so I usually glue that part down. And I am going to do it this way, or make sure that that crease is right there on the edge where I want it. And then smooth it down. So now I've got a tip out right there. Another thing that you can do with envelopes, there's a lot of things, sorry, a lot of things that you can do with envelopes. Let's find a big page. Already made envelopes, and I find small ones because I get these little packs of note cards. You can just glue the envelope down so that you can use it as a pocket that's, right side up. You can, glue it sideways on the page and just glue it down so that the flap will close, and then you can put things into the envelope. Another thing that you can do is not necessarily glue the entire envelope down, but just the edges. So not only do you have things in your pocket, but you'd have a pocket behind the envelope as well. You have to glue it down fairly well if you have things that are coming in and out of the pocket. And it gets to be pretty thick. You can't put too much stuff in a pocket like that because it does um, get away from the book. It lifts itself up with some with work. When you're putting things in and out, eventually that envelope might come up. But anyway, so there's lots of things that you can do with envelopes. I would glue the flap down, have a little tip out, and then I can collage over this flap and you wouldn't even know it was there. So envelopes are wonderful. Another thing that I really like are the note cards. Again, this is just a plain note card. It's plain on the black back, so I could glue it down and just have a tip up. I could glue the edges of this card so that not only does it tip up, but there's a pocket hidden behind it. I could glue this card to the edge of the page. and then it would open. Some cards have, like this one, have designs on both sides and maybe nothing on the inside. So something like that, I might want to glue down the blank part and just have a tip out of that part. And then this is nice and pretty. You could also glue that on the top of a page so that it tips up. You could glue just the edges of that to the top of the page, and then you'd have a pocket hidden underneath all of that. Lots and lots of options with cards. What I did with the other junk journal is I used, brochures like this. Some of the brochures had, multiple folds so that they were extra long. And I would just glue that onto the edge of a page so that it would tip out. You can also use washi tape or paper and glue the page as it is so it really tips out. You need to reinforce that so that it's very strong because with a lot of working, sometimes that joint will become fragile and it might rip itself off. So I almost prefer gluing, a page to a page and then having the tip outs. So those are options. I want to show how I did everybody's favorite tip out, and that's the one that tipped out 3 different ways with the face on it. Let me show you real fast so you know what I'm talking about. Of course, I won't be able to find it now that I'm looking for it. Here it is. Here it is. This was a piece of junk mail that I used with this one. And I did find a problem with it because the junk mail was not as large as my page was. So it got to be a little bit of a problem. And what I ended up doing was cutting the face or measuring how deep the tip out was going to be. I cut the face, glued it down, glued the other part of the face on that tip out, and then as I was gluing this tip in onto the page, I made sure that it aligned, and I did get it off just a little bit, but it's really not that noticeable. So there is a little leeway there. It's not as difficult as you would think. So let me go with this signature that I just made, and let's do a little tip out, a little 3-way tip out. So I've just got a piece of cardstock here, and I am going to fold it in thirds, just like my little piece of junk mail. And it's not exactly perfect. I mean, if I wanted to have it exactly the way the other one is, I would have to measure it. But it does tip out in 2 ways like that. All right. And I was going to have a picture for a demonstration. Let's see. Maybe we just put it right here. And all I did was glued that down on the page so that the edges were exactly aligned. And then I had the tip out. It's very easy to do. Um, and like I said, I did have to cut that face. I measured how big this was and then cut the face, glued the face down, and then glued the other half of the face on this part. And then when I glued it down, I moved it so that it would be where I wanted it to be. So that's an easy way to do it. It was a little difficult to do it that way, and if you are planning on doing something like that, it's hard to piece together the bottom of what you're doing. So when I do it next time, let's see if I can find a piece of paper here, a picture. I was going to show you how was going to do another one. I would actually glue a picture down first and then glue the tip out on top. And that way you're not trying to match up all the edges and all the sides and all that stuff. It was a little difficult to do. So that's what I would do in the future is put my whatever I want on the page down first and then glue my tip in on top. And I might even glue what I wanted on the tip out, tip in, whatever, before I glued it on. Okay, just an idea. And I will be putting that in somewhere, but I do want a picture underneath it before I do it. So I'm just going to keep it with the signature. All right. So I want to show how I would make one of these tip outs. I am going to make a tip out. I've got just a piece of paper, and it's just a piece of copy paper. It's nothing, it's not very heavy at all. And I think what I want is this picture of the trees on the inside. So I am going to glue this picture. What I'm going to do first is I am figure out where my center is. I'm going to do a strange little tip out. I'm going to do doors this time. I've not done this before, but this is what my tip out is going to be like. All right. I'm going to glue that down and my doors are going to open up to to this picture. Okay. And I think the doors are going to have this face on them. So I need to cut the face in half. And I am going to do all of this before I glue it into my book, just so I know that it's going to work. I'm going to cut this face in half. All right. And I am going to glue this face use a lot of glue because I don't want it to come undone. I am going to glue the face oh, you know what I need to do first? This picture here, let me backtrack. I'm rethinking. This picture does not go to the edges. Do I want to continue? I don't think I want my tip out any more narrow. So I may just put some washi tape on those edges. So this will work. This will work. All right. So let's see if that glue hasn't dried yet. Kind of has. Let me re-glue it. Let me add the glue again. Haven't done one of these kinds of tip outs. Kind of working it out as I go here. All right. Make sure that glue is nice and wet. Cloth. Make sure there's no air bubbles underneath. It is just a little bit larger than my paper here, so I can trim off the edges. And that looks good. So let me do the other side. And then I'll trim it off. Okay. Bring that edge to the edge of the paper. And what I've done is the page really, really goes over the edge here. And actually, so it's nice and straight. I am just going to trim it off with my cutter here, making sure that I'm not cutting my white paper because then it won't tip out. So let me just get that edge off, that side, edge off on this side. And I'm actually going to trim up the top and the bottom while I can see it. Because it is over the edge just a little bit. Okay, so it's all nice and trimmed. So that will be the top of the face. And I will have it open. Get that out of the way. And I want this in the center. So I am going to glue that down. Make sure I've got quite a bit of glue on so that it doesn't come up with all the bending. And make sure I have all the edges well covered. And make sure I've got the right side up. I'm going to go from the center and work out so that there's no air bubbles trapped, because the air bubbles will want to come out and they will let your paper kind of come unglued. You need to make sure your paper is connected to the bottom of the paper. I got a little smudge of my book here, but it looks all right. So I am going to refold that. So that it is right. Do that gently so I don't rip any of the paper. So the back is completely empty. And I've got this tip out that I will glue onto a page. Maybe that one. But before I do that, I'm going to want to add, maybe I should have saved the rest of her face and put the rest of her hair up there. And I might just do that because this looks like the perfect page to put it on. That one's a little small. But that seems like what I would do. So I would glue down the rest of the picture first and then glue this on top. I think that'll be perfect. And then you'll have a fun little tip out in your book. Lots of different ways to do tip outs and tip ins and add envelopes and all kinds of fun stuff. So that is how you build your junk journal. And I do pretty much build my junk journals as I go. I usually make the signature, and then sometimes I will just go ahead and start decorating pages. And as I come across a place that I want to add an envelope or a pocket, I will do that wherever it seems like there needs to be a pocket or an envelope. And with this tip out here, I said that I might make an envelope here. All I would have to do is glue the edges or staple or, attach the edges of this, and then I would have a little place that I could put something. A nice little hiding place, kind of. I will be working with junk journals the next few weeks, and these are a couple of the junk journals that I will be working in so you can see the progress. I apologize for losing my videos. I have no idea what happened to them. So I will be redoing them. Here's another place that would be a great little pocket. And what I might do is add maybe some painted paper or something and then make the pocket so that it's not white here. But I will do that in videos. And then when I'm done with my signatures, I will sew them into a cover. So that's all I wanted to do today. Put that there because I want that inside as well. Thanks for watching.